Have you ever wondered why men become distant after intimacy? Why that passionate lover suddenly turns cold, withdrawn, almost repulsed by what moments before consumed him entirely? What if I told you that every male orgasm triggers the exact same psychological and physical cycle that women experience during menstruation? Carl Jung understood something that modern society has forgotten. The psyche operates in cycles of depletion and renewal. What we witness in the post-orgasmic male is not mere biological tiredness. It is a complete energetic collapse, a monthly period compressed into moments. The ancient wisdom knew this truth. They understood that vital essence, what the East calls Shakti, governs not just physical vitality, but psychological equilibrium. When this essence is expelled, the consequences are immediate and profound. The glint disappears from his eyes. The passionate man becomes cold. Yet we live in a culture that denies this obvious reality. We pretend that male sexuality operates without consequence, that endless ejaculation somehow strengthens rather than depletes. This is perhaps the greatest lie ever told about masculine nature, and it is destroying men from within. Today we will examine this hidden truth through Jung's lens of psychological wholeness. We will see how the male period manifests, why it devastates relationships, and how understanding this cycle can restore authentic masculine power. But be warned, once you see this pattern, you cannot unsee it. The evidence surrounds us, yet we refuse to acknowledge what stands before our eyes. Every woman who has been intimate with a man has witnessed this phenomenon. One moment he is attentive, passionate, willing to move mountains for her affection. The next moment after orgasm, he becomes a stranger. This is not mere coincidence or personality flaw. This is biology expressing itself through psychology. Just as women lose vital tissue and energy during menstruation, men lose something equally precious during ejaculation. The difference is that women's cycle is natural, ordained by nature once monthly. Men, however, have turned their period into a daily occurrence. In doing so, they have placed themselves in a state of chronic energetic bankruptcy. Most Western males exist in permanent PMS, irritable, moody, impatient, critical, needing constant stimulation to feel alive. Jung spoke of the shadow, those aspects of ourselves we refuse to acknowledge. The male period is perhaps the greatest shadow in modern masculine consciousness. We see its effects everywhere, but refuse to name the cause. Domestic fights erupt within hours of male orgasm. Relationships deteriorate as men cycle through depletion and temporary recovery. The female experiences her loss once every 28 days. Nature dictates this rhythm, and she must honor it. But the modern male? He chooses multiple periods per week, sometimes per day, wondering why he feels constantly drained, constantly searching for something to fill the void. This is why women are gaining psychological ascendancy over men. They maintain their vital essence while men squander theirs. They operate from a place of energetic integrity while men exist in chronic deficit. The result is predictable. Women become the stable force while men become reactive, needy, depleted. Jung understood that psychological health requires recognition of natural rhythms. The man who ignores his energetic cycles lives in constant imbalance. He becomes addicted to the very thing that weakens him, trapped in a cycle he cannot break because he refuses to acknowledge its existence. But this awareness brings both revelation and responsibility. Once you understand that orgasm equals male period, you cannot continue living unconsciously. You must choose. Continue the pattern of depletion, or reclaim your authentic masculine power through conscious restraint. Think about the men you know who seem constantly agitated, always seeking the next thrill, never satisfied. Now consider their sexual habits. The correlation becomes obvious once you know what to look for. These are men living in chronic PMS, their vital essence scattered to the winds. Compare this to the rare man who seems centered, grounded, present. There is something different about his energy, something that commands respect without effort. This is not accident. This is conservation of life force, expressing itself through psychological stability. The ancient traditions understood this principle completely. They recognized that male sexual energy forms the cornerstone of psychological resilience. In medieval times, the male organ was called his virtue, not metaphorically, but literally. His character strength flowed directly from his sexual integrity. When a man dumps his essence wantonly, he literally loses his virtue. He becomes reactive rather than responsive, needy rather than generous, critical rather than patient. The noble qualities that define authentic masculinity drain away with each thoughtless ejaculation. This is why divorce rates skyrocket and relationships deteriorate. Men are giving their worst selves to the people they claim to love most. They are operating from chronic depletion, wondering why nothing feels meaningful, why they cannot maintain passion, why life feels gray and flat. Jung taught that individuation requires facing uncomfortable truths about ourselves. For modern men, this truth is brutal. They have been taught to destroy their own psychological foundation in the name of pleasure. They have been convinced that weakness is strength, that depletion is fulfillment. But recognition brings possibility. The man who acknowledges his period can begin to work with it rather than against it. He can time his intimate encounters with awareness. He can give his partner his best self rather than his depleted remnant. Consider the wisdom hidden in nature's design. When a woman receives a man's essence, she gains something precious. Her body and spirit are nourished by this gift. She glows after intimacy because she has received life force rather than expelled it. This is why women often want to talk and connect after sex. They are energized, not depleted. The man, however, has given something irreplaceable. In nature's original plan, this gift would be returned to him through the miracle of new life, a child. But modern sexuality has divorced the act from its purpose, leaving men to pay the price without receiving the return. This is not to say that all sexual expression should aim at procreation. Rather, it is to recognize that nature extracted a price for this gift of creation, and that price must be honored. The man who ejaculates carelessly is writing checks his energy bank cannot cash. Jung believed that psychological health required understanding natural cycles and working with them rather than against them. For men, this means recognizing that they cannot have unlimited orgasms without consequence. They cannot live like teenagers forever without paying the psychological price. The evidence appears in every aspect of masculine behavior. The post-orgasmic male withdraws because he has nothing left to give. He becomes irritable because his nervous system is depleted. He loses interest because his motivating force has been expelled. This is not moral failing, this is biological reality expressing itself psychologically. Most men try to solve this problem through external means. They seek new partners, new thrills, new stimulations. They become sexual addicts without recognizing their addiction. They blame their partners for not understanding them, never realizing they are offering damaged goods. The solution lies not in more stimulation, but in conscious restraint. The man who learns to contain his essence discovers reserves of power he never knew existed. He becomes attractive not because he pursues, but because he has something valuable to offer. He radiates presence because he is not constantly seeking to fill an internal void. This transformation affects every relationship in his life. He becomes a better father because he has patience for his children. He becomes a better partner because he can give from abundance rather than neediness. He becomes a better man because he is working with his nature rather than against it. But this path requires sacrifice. It means saying no to immediate gratification in service of long-term vitality. It means swimming against the current of a culture that promotes sexual excess as freedom. It means facing the uncomfortable truth that most modern masculine behavior stems from chronic energetic depletion. Jung spoke of the process of individuation as a return to wholeness. For men, this process must include recognition and respect for their energetic cycles. They must learn to see orgasm not as conquest, but as expenditure, not as proof of virility, but as depletion of vital force. The man who masters this understanding gains access to qualities that seem almost supernatural in our depleted age. He develops what the ancients called presence, a quality of being that commands respect without demanding it. He becomes magnetic, not through pursuit, but through containment. This is not about sexual repression or denial of natural desires. This is about understanding the true cost of sexual expression and choosing consciously rather than compulsively. It is about recognizing that unlimited sexual expression creates unlimited psychological instability. The female cycle provides the template. Nature designed her to lose vital essence once monthly, and she has adapted to this rhythm over millennia. Her psychology reflects this natural timing. She can afford one period per month because nature has prepared her for this loss. But men have ignored nature's wisdom entirely. They have turned their period into a daily event, wondering why they feel constantly unbalanced. They have created artificial cycles that their psychology cannot handle, then medicate the resulting symptoms rather than addressing the cause. This pattern affects not just individual men, but entire societies. Nations led by depleted males make reactive decisions rather than wise ones. They pursue war instead of peace, consumption instead of conservation, immediate gratification instead of long-term vision. The personal becomes political when enough individuals operate from depletion. Jung understood that individual healing precedes collective healing. The man who reclaims his energetic integrity contributes to the healing of masculine culture. He becomes a model of what authentic masculinity looks like when it operates from abundance rather than scarcity. But this healing requires courage. It means admitting that modern masculine sexuality is fundamentally dysfunctional. It means acknowledging that the sexual revolution liberated men into chronic depletion. It means accepting responsibility for changing patterns that feel natural because they have become habitual. The man who takes this responsibility seriously discovers that sexual energy, when contained and circulated rather than expelled, becomes the foundation for all other achievements. His creativity increases, his mental clarity sharpens, his emotional stability deepens. He becomes more attractive to authentic feminine energy because he has something genuine to offer. This transformation happens not through willpower alone, but through understanding. Once a man truly grasps that every orgasm creates his personal period, he can no longer remain unconscious about his sexual choices. He must choose between temporary pleasure and long-term vitality. The wise man chooses vitality. He learns to redirect sexual energy into creative and spiritual pursuits. He discovers that the same force that creates life can create art, build businesses, inspire others. He learns that sexual energy conserved becomes life energy amplified. This does not mean celibacy for all men. Rather, it means conscious sexuality that honors the true cost of orgasm. It means spacing intimate encounters to allow full recovery. It means giving partners the best version of oneself rather than the depleted aftermath. Jung taught that consciousness is curative. Simply becoming aware of unconscious patterns begins to change them. The man who recognizes his post-orgasmic period can no longer pretend it does not exist. He must either accept chronic depletion or choose conscious conservation. This choice determines not just personal happiness, but the quality of all relationships. The depleted man brings irritability, neediness, and instability to everyone he encounters. The vitalized man brings patience, generosity, and presence. The difference is literally night and day. Children especially suffer when fathers operate from chronic depletion. They receive impatience instead of guidance, criticism instead of encouragement, distraction instead of presence. The father's energetic state becomes the family's emotional climate. Partners also pay the price. They must navigate the man's unpredictable moods, his post-orgasmic withdrawal, his search for external stimulation to fill internal emptiness. Many relationships fail not because of incompatibility, but because one partner is chronically depleted. The solution lies in education and conscious choice. Men must learn to track their energetic cycles as carefully as women track theirs. They must recognize the signs of depletion and adjust accordingly. They must take responsibility for their energetic state rather than expecting others to manage their moods. This awareness creates the possibility for authentic intimacy. When a man approaches sexuality from fullness rather than neediness, the entire dynamic changes. He can be present with his partner rather than using her to fill his emptiness. He can give rather than take. The woman, in turn, receives a completely different quality of masculine presence. Instead of managing a depleted partner's moods, she encounters a man who has something valuable to offer. This creates the conditions for genuine polarity and mutual attraction. But this transformation requires sustained commitment. The patterns of sexual excess run deep in modern culture. They are reinforced by entertainment, advertising, and peer pressure. Breaking free requires not just individual effort, but cultural revolution. The man who chooses this path must be prepared for misunderstanding. Others may view his restraint as repression, his consciousness as obsession. He must be strong enough to follow his own wisdom rather than collective ignorance. Yet the rewards justify the effort. The man who respects his energetic cycles discovers reserves of power that transform every area of life. He becomes the calm center in any storm. He develops the presence that others seek but cannot define. This is the return to authentic masculinity that Jung envisioned not through dominance or aggression, but through conscious management of life force. It is the integration of sexual energy into higher purposes, the transformation of base desires into noble achievements. The choice stands before every man reading these words. Continue the pattern of unconscious depletion, or begin the work of conscious conservation. Accept chronic PMS as normal masculine experience, or reclaim the vitality that is your birthright. Jung believed that every individual has the responsibility to become whole. For men, this wholeness requires recognition of energetic cycles and conscious choice about sexual expression. It requires treating the life force with the respect it deserves. The man who makes this choice joins the ranks of those who have transcended mere biological impulse to achieve psychological mastery. He becomes a beacon for others, demonstrating what masculinity looks like when it operates from wisdom rather than compulsion. This is not the end of the discussion, but the beginning. Once this awareness takes root, it must be lived, practiced, embodied. The theoretical understanding must become practical wisdom. The intellectual recognition must become emotional reality. The future of masculine consciousness depends on men who are willing to face these uncomfortable truths and choose differently. They must be willing to sacrifice immediate gratification for long-term vitality. They must be willing to swim against cultural currents that promote depletion as freedom. But for those who choose this path, the rewards are immeasurable. They reclaim not just personal vitality, but the possibility of authentic relationship, creative achievement, and spiritual development. They become the men the world desperately needs: present, powerful, and psychologically whole. The choice is yours. Will you continue cycling through depletion and wondering why life feels empty? Or will you honor the wisdom that Jung and the ancients understood, that sexual energy conserved becomes life energy amplified? Your answer determines not just your personal destiny, but your contribution to the healing of masculine consciousness itself. Choose wisely, for this choice echoes through generations. But let us speak now of the miraculous restoration that awaits the man who begins to respect his divine essence. For we have focused on the damage, the depletion, the chronic masculine PMS that plagues our age. Now witness what happens when a man reclaims his birthright. The ancient Taoists understood this alchemy completely. They observed that when a man begins to conserve his vital essence, even modestly, perhaps reducing his orgasms by half, immediate changes occur. The nervous system, constantly drained by sexual discharge, begins to repair itself. Within days, his concentration sharpens. The fog that clouded his thinking lifts. He no longer needs multiple cups of coffee to function, no longer reaches for stimulants to feel alive. His natural energy returns because he has stopped bleeding it away through thoughtless ejaculation. Women notice this change immediately. They sense something different in his presence, though they cannot name it. He carries himself differently. His voice carries weight. His decisions come from centeredness rather than reactivity. This is not mere placebo effect. This is biological reality expressing itself through psychological strength. The man who conserves his essence discovers that sexual energy is creative energy. The same force that creates life can create art, build empires, inspire movements. History's greatest men understood this principle. They channeled their sexual power into achievement that outlasted their physical bodies. Consider the legends who changed the world through sheer force of presence. These were men who understood that every drop of essence wasted was power that could have built something eternal. They treated their sexual energy as sacred fuel for higher purposes. But modern culture has inverted this wisdom completely. We are told that sexual restraint creates neurosis, that unlimited expression equals health. This is perhaps the greatest lie ever perpetuated against masculine nature. The neurotic is not the man who conserves his essence, it is the man who squanders it daily and wonders why he feels empty. Watch what happens when a man begins this practice seriously. His skin improves, his eyes brighten, his posture straightens. These are not psychological tricks. These are physical manifestations of conserved life force circulating through his system instead of being expelled. His relationships transform as well. No longer does he approach women from neediness, seeking to fill an internal void. He approaches from fullness, having something genuine to offer. This attracts authentic feminine energy while repelling those who would drain him. The workplace becomes a different arena entirely. He no longer tolerates disrespect or manipulation. His presence commands attention without demanding it. Colleagues sense his centeredness and respond accordingly. Opportunities appear because he radiates the confidence that comes from internal abundance. Children especially benefit from this father's presence. Instead of impatience and distraction, they receive focused attention. Instead of criticism born from his own depletion, they receive encouragement from his strength. The father's energetic state becomes the family's emotional foundation. Sleep improves dramatically. The man who conserves essence requires less rest because his energy is not constantly being drained. He wakes refreshed rather than depleted, ready to engage the day from vitality rather than forcing himself through exhaustion. Mental clarity reaches levels he had forgotten were possible. Complex problems become manageable. Decision-making becomes instinctive rather than agonizing. This is the mind operating with its full energetic resources rather than running on empty. Physical strength increases as well. The body no longer diverts precious resources to constantly replenish sexual fluids. Muscle tone improves, endurance extends, athletic performance enhances because the foundation of vital force remains intact. But perhaps most importantly, spiritual development accelerates. Sexual energy is spiritual energy in its raw form. When conserved and redirected upward, it fuels meditation, prayer, contemplation. The man discovers dimensions of consciousness previously inaccessible to his depleted state. This is why every legitimate spiritual tradition has emphasized sexual restraint for serious practitioners. They understood that this energy, when properly channeled, becomes the fuel for enlightenment itself. The depleted man cannot access higher states because he lacks the energetic foundation. Yet this transformation requires patience. Years of depletion cannot be reversed overnight. The nervous system needs time to heal. The psyche needs time to adjust to operating from abundance rather than scarcity. But every day of practice compounds the benefits. The man who commits to this path must also prepare for resistance from culture, from partners accustomed to his depleted state, from his own conditioned impulses. The sexual addiction runs deeper than most men realize. Breaking free requires sustained commitment to a higher vision of masculine possibility. But for those who persist, the rewards justify every sacrifice. They reclaim not just personal vitality, but the possibility of authentic masculine leadership. They become the centered presence that our chaotic world desperately needs: men who can remain calm while others panic, who can think clearly while others react emotionally. This is the return to authentic masculine power that Jung envisioned not through dominance or aggression, but through conscious mastery of life force. It is the integration of sexual energy into higher purposes, the transformation of base impulse into noble achievement. The choice stands before every man reading these words. Continue the pattern of unconscious depletion or begin the sacred work of conscious conservation. Accept chronic PMS as normal masculine experience or reclaim the vitality that is your divine inheritance. But know this: once you begin this practice seriously, there is no going back to unconsciousness. You will see the cost of every thoughtless ejaculation, feel the immediate depletion in your energy system. This awareness becomes both gift and responsibility, the gift of conscious choice and the responsibility to choose wisely. The future of masculine consciousness depends on men brave enough to swim against cultural currents, to choose long-term vitality over immediate gratification, to treat their sexual energy with the reverence it deserves. These men become beacons for others, demonstrating what masculinity looks like when aligned with natural law rather than fighting against it.